My phone buzzed at 7:12 a.m., the kind of hour where bad news feels more believable because your brain hasn't fully woken up yet. The caller ID said Dad. I stared at it for a second longer than normal because my father doesn't call early unless he wants something or he's about to announce something like it's a verdict. I answered, "Hello?" His voice came through cold and flat, like he was reading a line he'd practiced. "Grandpa died last night. Funeral Friday. He left us everything. You get nothing." For a beat, I didn't even breathe. Not because I believed him, because I could hear it. My mother, in the background, laughing. Not soft, not sad. A bright little laugh like someone heard a joke they'd waited months to tell. Then her voice, clear enough that she knew I'd hear it. "Finally, you're out." I could have argued. I could have screamed. I could have begged for details like they expected me to. Instead, I looked at the kitchen table. Because my grandfather was sitting right next to me, alive, holding his coffee mug like nothing in the world could move him unless he chose to move. His hands looked older than they used to, thin skin, veins more visible, but they were steady. His eyes were calm and awake, the kind of calm that doesn't come from ignorance. It comes from certainty. On the table in front of him was a sealed envelope. Thick paper, attorney letterhead in the corner, my name handwritten in a neat, careful script. The seal wasn't decorative. It was the kind that snaps when you break it. Evidence, not sentiment. I didn't respond to my father. I didn't even blink at my mother's laugh. I simply pressed one button and set the call on speaker, then I slid the phone across the table until it sat between me and Grandpa like a microphone. My father kept talking, because my silence always makes him assume he's winning. "You thought you were smart," he continued, "cutting us off, playing independent. Now it doesn't matter. The house, the accounts, the land, everything is ours." I watched Grandpa's face. Not anger, not shock. Just a small tightening near his jaw, like he was marking each sentence the way a judge marks a lie. My mother leaned closer to the phone in the background and sweetened her tone, the way she does when she wants cruelty to sound reasonable. "Come to the funeral," she said. "Or don't. Either way, you're not family anymore." Grandpa's gaze shifted to the envelope. He didn't open it. He didn't need to. He tapped the seal once with his fingertip. One quiet tap, as if reminding himself there was a line they hadn't read yet. My father's voice sharpened. "Are you even listening?" I kept my voice steady. "I'm listening." He exhaled like he was disappointed I wasn't crying. "Good. Then you'll do the right thing and stay away from the attorney's office. We've already handled it." Handled it. That word made my stomach drop, because in my father's mouth, handled means paperwork, signatures, and someone being cornered when they're too emotional to read. And then I noticed something else, small but important. Grandpa's left hand wasn't on the mug. It was resting on a thin folder beside the envelope. Not thick, not dramatic. Just one of those plain manila folders people use when they want the paper to be the story, not the package. He'd come prepared. My father kept going, voice gaining confidence as he heard nothing but my controlled breathing on the line. "We're driving to the cabin tomorrow," he said. "We're taking inventory. We'll send you whatever personal junk you left there." My mother laughed again. "If there's anything worth sending." I stared at the phone screen. The call timer kept counting up, proof that this wasn't a nightmare, it was documented. 7:13, 7:14. Then Grandpa did something that made my skin prickle. He leaned slightly toward the phone, not fast, not dramatic. The slow movement of a man deciding a door is about to close. His eyes met mine for 1 second. A question without words. "Are you ready?" I nodded once. Grandpa picked up the sealed envelope and held it up at eye level, angled toward me like he was reminding me it existed for a reason. Then he set it down again and placed 2 fingers on the manila folder. He didn't open either, he just listened. My father was still talking, now in the tone he uses when he believes he's giving orders to someone who has no options. "Don't cause problems," he said. "You'll embarrass yourself. It's done." Grandpa's expression didn't change, but his thumb slowly slid the envelope closer to the phone, like he was positioning it for the moment it would matter. Then he leaned in and spoke toward the speakerphone. Not loudly, not angrily, just one word, clear enough to slice through my parents' performance like a knife through paper. Hello. On the other end of the line, the laughter stopped so abruptly, it felt like someone cut the audio. My father didn't speak. My mother didn't breathe. For 2 seconds, there was nothing but silence and the faint crackle of a phone connection struggling to carry what just happened. And then my father's voice came back, thin, disbelieving. Dad? Grandpa didn't answer him right away. He looked down at the sealed envelope, then at me, then back at the phone, like he was deciding whether this conversation would be a warning or the start of something official. Because whatever my parents had handled, Grandpa had handled something too, and he had brought proof to my kitchen table. For a few seconds after Grandpa said hello, the line went dead silent. So silent I could hear the small electrical buzz of my kitchen light. Then my father's voice came back, thin and disbelieving. Dad? My mother didn't speak at all at first. I could hear her breathing, short, sharp inhales like she was trying to decide whether to panic or perform. Grandpa didn't give them the mercy of confusion. He stayed close to the phone and spoke in the same calm tone he used when he taught me how to do things the right way the first time. I heard everything, he said. My father tried to recover control immediately. Dad, this is a misunderstanding, he said fast. We got a call. They said, no, Grandpa cut in, still calm. You didn't say you got a call. He paused, just one beat. You said you got everything. My father went quiet again. My mother's voice slid in, soft and sweet, like honey poured over broken glass. Dad, thank God, she said, almost crying on command. We were so scared. We thought. Grandpa didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. You laughed, he said. One sentence, one fact, and it landed harder than any accusation. My mother's sweetness cracked. That wasn't. She started. I'm sitting here, Grandpa continued, with your granddaughter, at her kitchen table, with a sealed envelope from my attorney. My father's tone shifted, less theatrical, more urgent. Why are you with her? He demanded. She's been poisoning you against us. Grandpa's eyes met mine for a second. Then he looked back at the phone like he was speaking to strangers, not family. I'm with her, he said, because I knew you'd try something the moment you thought you could. My stomach tightened, because Grandpa wasn't guessing. He was confirming. My father tried another angle, anger, louder this time, like volume could erase evidence. Are you even thinking clearly? He snapped. Do you know what day it is? Grandpa didn't flinch. It's Tuesday, he said. And at 7:12 this morning, you called my granddaughter to tell her I was dead. He paused. And you told her to stay away from the attorney's office. I felt my pulse jump, because that wasn't a random threat, that was a plan. My mother's voice came back, sharper now. We said that because she causes problems. She shows up and makes scenes. Grandpa's tone stayed flat. She shows up with documents, huh? He said. That's what you're afraid of. Then he did something that changed the whole temperature of the call. He didn't argue morality. He asked a procedural question. Why did your bank receive a death notification request at 6:48 a.m.? He asked. My breath caught. I looked at Grandpa sharply because I hadn't even known that. My father made a sound, half cough, half choke. What? He said. What are you talking about? Grandpa slid the manila folder toward me and opened it for the first time. Inside was a single printed page with a bank logo and an alert header. He tapped it once and pushed it toward the phone, as if my father could see it through the speaker. This, Grandpa said, is an automated fraud alert. It came to my email at 6:52 a.m., 4 minutes after someone tried to initiate a deceased customer process under my name. My mother's voice went thin. That's not us. Grandpa didn't debate. He read the line that mattered. It lists the submitting contact as he paused and looked down. My son's email. The kitchen felt suddenly smaller. Because my father wasn't just running his mouth on a call, He'd touched a system, and systems don't care about family. They care about logs. My father raised his voice again, desperate now. That's fake, he snapped. She's showing you fake paperwork. Grandpa's eyes didn't even blink. It came from the bank, he said, not from her. Then Grandpa leaned closer to the speaker and dropped his voice, still calm but colder. Here's what's going to happen, he said. At 9 a.m., I have an appointment at my attorney's office. She will be there. And this call will be played. My mother's breath hitched. My father tried to interrupt. Dad, you can't. Grandpa cut him off with a single sentence. You're done talking. There was a pause, short, sharp, like my father couldn't process being silenced. Then my mother tried one last pivot, voice trembling in the most strategic way. Dad, please. You're not well, she whispered. You shouldn't be traveling. Let us handle it. Grandpa looked at me, then at the envelope, then back at the phone. I'm well enough to sign, he said, and well enough to revoke anything I've ever given you. Revoke. That word hit like a door slamming. Because my parents had been trying to handle things for years, access, accounts, permissions, things that only work if Grandpa's authority is already in their hands. My father's tone turned ugly. If you do this, he hissed, you'll regret it. Grandpa didn't respond emotionally. He responded with a kind of calm that makes threats sound childish. I already regret what I tolerated, he said. Then he looked at me. Put the call recording on, he said quietly. I tapped record. The little red timer appeared on my screen. Grandpa knew exactly what he was doing. He wanted their voices, their laughter, their certainty that I was out. He wanted it frozen in time, because people like my parents rewrite the past the moment the future stops obeying them. My father realized it too. His voice changed instantly. Dad, he said, suddenly softer, suddenly careful. Listen, we can talk in person. Don't do this in front of strangers. Grandpa's eyes stayed steady. You already did it in front of strangers, he replied. You did it at the bank. Then he said the line that made my stomach drop again. And someone was at my cabin this morning. I went still. What? Grandpa didn't look away from the phone. Lockbox tamper alert, he said. 10 minutes ago. My father inhaled sharply, barely audible, but there. Grandpa heard it too. He leaned in and said, quiet and precise, tell your cousin to step away from the door. The call went silent for 1 second. Then, faintly far in the background, I heard a different voice on my father's end, panicked and fast. Hey, someone's here. Grandpa's face didn't change. Mine did. Because suddenly this wasn't just a lie on a phone call. This was movement. Real time. Grandpa ended the call with one tap, clean, final. Then he slid the sealed envelope toward me and spoke like every word was evidence. We're going to the attorney, he said, and then we're going to the cabin. My hands were shaking as I grabbed my keys. And right as we stood up, my phone buzzed again. An alert I'd never seen before. Cabin camera, front porch motion. I opened it. The live feed loaded. And there was a man on Grandpa's porch, tool bag on his shoulder, reaching toward the lockbox, while my father's cousin stood behind him, watching the road like he was waiting for us to arrive too late. The porch camera feed loaded in shaky bars of signal, then sharpened just enough for me to recognize the shape of what I was seeing. A man with a tool bag, kneeling by the lockbox, not Grandpa, not a neighbor, a stranger doing a job. And behind him, half in frame, half hiding, was my father's cousin, the one who always knew people, always had a friend who could fix paperwork. Grandpa stared at the screen without blinking. He didn't gasp. He didn't curse. He simply nodded once, like a man watching a trap finally catch what it was designed to catch. Record it, he said. I hit screen record. Red dot, proof. Then Grandpa did something that made my pulse spike. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a second phone. Old school, no apps, no drama. A number already saved. He called. A man answered on the second ring. Sheriff's office. This is Harold, Grandpa said, voice steady. I have a live camera feed showing an attempted unlawful entry at my cabin. I'm alive. My son is falsely reporting my death." There was a pause. Then the deputy's tone changed instantly, because real names carry weight in small counties. "Mr. Carter," the deputy said, "where are you right now?" "On my way to my attorney," Grandpa replied. "But I need a unit at my cabin now." Grandpa gave the address from memory without looking at anything. Then he added one line that sounded almost casual, but I felt how sharp it was. "And I want the responding unit to note this. There was a bank death notification attempt made this morning under my son's email." The deputy didn't argue. "Understood," he said. "We're dispatching." Grandpa ended the call and looked at me. "Keys," he said. "Folder. Envelope." I grabbed everything. We got into his truck. Grandpa still drove, despite my protests, and pulled out of the driveway with the sealed envelope between us like a loaded gun. On the highway, I kept the cabin feed open. The man with the tool bag shifted, tried the lockbox again, then stood and talked to my cousin. I couldn't hear audio, but I didn't need to. His gestures were clear. "It's locked. I need a code." My cousin pointed at the door like he was done waiting. Then, worst part, the locksmith walked up to the cabin door. Like the lockbox was just step one. Grandpa's jaw tightened for the first time. He didn't look scared. He looked offended. Not for himself, for the house, for the audacity. "People like that," he said quietly, "don't stop when paper fails." 20 minutes later, we pulled into the attorney's parking lot. The office was calm, polished, glass door, neutral carpet, framed certificates. The kind of place where families pretend they're civilized because the walls are beige. Inside, the attorney greeted Grandpa with professional warmth, then glanced at me like she already knew my face from old stories. "Mr. Carter," she said, "I'm glad you're here in person." Grandpa nodded toward me. "She stays with me," he said. Then he placed the sealed envelope on the desk. "Before we do anything," he said, "I want my son's call recorded and preserved." The attorney's eyes sharpened. "You have the call?" I held up my phone. "Recorded," I said. "Speaker. Their voices. Everything." The attorney nodded once. "Good." Grandpa leaned forward, calm as stone. "Now," he said, "tell me what my son tried to file." The attorney exhaled, then pulled up her computer screen and turned it slightly so Grandpa could see. "There was an inquiry this morning," she said, "from your son. He asked whether a death certificate had been issued yet and whether he could proceed with immediate estate administration." My stomach dropped. "He asked for a death certificate?" Grandpa didn't flinch. "Yes," he said, like it was exactly what he expected. The attorney clicked again. "There was also an attempted change request," she continued, "to update your beneficiary contact information on 2 accounts." Grandpa's eyes narrowed slightly. "Which accounts?" The attorney hesitated, just a fraction, then said it. "The investment account," she said, "and the cabin property file." Grandpa sat back, and in that moment I realized the truth. This wasn't about leaving me nothing. It was about locking me out fast enough that I couldn't interfere while they moved money and access. Grandpa opened the manila folder and slid the bank alert across the desk. The attorney's eyes flicked down. She read. Her expression changed. "That's a fraud alert," she said quietly. Grandpa nodded. "Exactly." Then he tapped the sealed envelope once. "Now we open this," he said. The attorney nodded, but she was watching Grandpa, carefully, like she knew the next 5 minutes would decide whether this stayed a family conflict or became a criminal record. Grandpa broke the seal slowly. No shaking hands, no hesitation. He pulled out a letter and a second document, thicker, stamped. He read one line silently, then pushed it toward the attorney. "I want this filed today," he said. The attorney read it and went still. Then she looked up at Grandpa, voice lower. "This appoints an executor," she said. "Not your son." Grandpa nodded. "And it denies him access," she added, almost as if she couldn't believe how explicit it was. "Yes," Grandpa said. Because I know him. My throat tightened. The attorney swallowed, then slid the document into a tray labeled urgent. Okay, she said, professional again. We can file this, but once it's filed, your son will be notified. Grandpa's eyes didn't blink. Let him, he said. Then he leaned toward her. And I want one more thing, he added. A statement on the record that I'm alive, because he's already telling people I'm dead. The attorney nodded sharply. We can do that. She printed a form. Grandpa signed, clean, deliberate. Then she turned her screen toward me. Your father tried to access your grandfather's estate portal, she said. He used an old password reset question. My stomach dropped. How would he know that? Grandpa answered before I could. Because your mother filled out my forms, he said quietly. For years. The room felt colder. The attorney looked up. Mr. Carter, she said, do you have any reason to believe they have physical documents with your signature? Grandpa's gaze went to me. Yes, he said. And they tried to steal them this morning. My phone buzzed. Another cabin alert. I opened the feed. 2 sheriff vehicles were now in the driveway, lights flashing against snow patches like blue knives. The locksmith and my cousin froze. One deputy stepped out, hand near his belt, and shouted something we couldn't hear. Then the locksmith raised his hands. My cousin did not. He backed toward the woods. Grandpa leaned closer to my phone, eyes hard. Don't run, he murmured. On the feed, my cousin sprinted off camera. A deputy chased. The locksmith stayed. And then, because my family never does just one thing at a time, my phone buzzed again. Not an alert. A call from my father. I stared at the screen. Grandpa stared too. He didn't tell me to answer. He simply slid the phone toward himself and said very quietly, let's see what story he tries now. My father's name glowed on my screen like a dare. I didn't touch it. Grandpa did. He slid my phone toward himself, hit speaker, and answered with the same calm voice he used when he wanted someone to expose themselves without realizing it. Yes? For half a second, my father didn't speak, like his brain couldn't compute the sound of a dead man answering. Then he recovered fast. Dad, he said, too smooth. Thank God. I'm coming to see you. We need to talk privately, right now. Grandpa didn't take the bait. About what? He asked. My father exhaled like he was the reasonable one. About her, he said, and I felt my stomach tighten. She's manipulating you. She's isolating you. People are worried. People. That word is never about concern in my family. It's about leverage. Grandpa glanced at the attorney. She gave a small nod and quietly tapped a button on her desk phone, recording on her end too. Redundancy. Proof. Grandpa spoke again, steady. At 7:12 this morning, he said, you told my granddaughter I was dead. My father's voice went lighter, false surprise. Dad, I didn't. You did, Grandpa cut in, calm. And your wife laughed. Silence. Then my father's voice sharpened. Fine, he snapped. You want the truth? We did it because we had to. Protect what's ours before she steals it. The attorney's eyes lifted. Mine went cold. Grandpa's tone didn't change. What is ours? He asked. The estate, my father said, fast now, angry. The accounts, the cabin, the land. Dad, you don't understand how this works. If she gets involved, it becomes a mess. Grandpa leaned slightly toward the speaker, like he wanted every word clean on the recording. She is involved, he said. She's sitting beside me. My father's breath hitched, tiny, but there. Then he pivoted hard. Dad, listen, he said, suddenly softer, almost pleading. Let's not do this through lawyers. I'll drive to you. We'll settle it as family. Grandpa's eyes didn't blink. You already chose lawyers, he said. You chose the bank at 648. You chose the registry. You chose the lockbox. That last word changed the line. My father's voice tightened. What lockbox? Grandpa waited one beat, long, enough to let the lie form, then said, the one your cousin tried to open 10 minutes ago. Another silence. Then, faint in the background on my father's end, A muffled voice. Female. Too close to the phone. Don't say anything. My mother. Grandpa heard it. So did the attorney. So did I. Grandpa's mouth tightened at the corners, but his voice stayed controlled. I can hear her, he said. My father snapped loud and sharp. She's not there. She is, Grandpa replied. And you're on speaker. And you're being recorded. That word, recorded, changed everything. My father's tone shifted instantly, like a mask dropping into place. Dad, he said, careful now. This doesn't have to get ugly. We can handle this quietly. Grandpa gave him nothing. Tell me why you told my granddaughter to stay away from my attorney, Grandpa said. My father hesitated. Just long enough. Then he tried to fill the silence with authority. Because she's unstable, he said. She's been having episodes. She twists things. Everyone knows. The attorney's pen stopped moving. Grandpa's eyes turned colder. Everyone doesn't know, Grandpa said. You want it on paper so she sounds unreliable. My father raised his voice, defensive. She's taking advantage of you. She has you in her kitchen, feeding you lies. I'm the one who brought the envelope, Grandpa said flatly. Not her. Silence again. And then my father said, the sentence that told me this was bigger than the cabin. Dad, the court is already involved. My stomach dropped. The attorney's head lifted slowly. What? Grandpa didn't react outwardly. He just asked, calm and deadly. What court? My father tried to backpedal immediately. I mean probate, he said quickly. It's standard. The attorney reached for her keyboard and started typing, fast. She didn't ask permission. Grandpa watched her for 1 second, then looked back at the phone. You filed something, he said. My father's voice rose, panicked for the first time. No, he snapped. I didn't file. I inquired. Grandpa didn't argue. He let the attorney do it. She stared at her screen, clicked twice, then froze. And when she spoke, her voice was lower than before. Mr. Carter, she said to Grandpa, there is a filing. My skin went cold. My father heard her voice on the speaker and immediately jumped in. Don't listen to her, he barked. That attorney works for her? The attorney ignored him and kept reading. Emergency petition, she said. Temporary guardianship. I felt my breath leave my body. Grandpa didn't blink. Guardianship? He repeated. The attorney's eyes flicked to me, then back to Grandpa. It claims you are mentally incapacitated, she said. It claims you're being exploited. My father's voice came through the phone, furious and triumphant at the same time. It's for your own good, he snapped. If you won't listen, the court will make you listen. Grandpa stared at the phone like it had become a foreign object. Then he spoke quietly with a calm so sharp it scared me. You tried to declare me dead at a bank, he said, and when that failed, he paused. You tried to declare me incompetent in court. My father didn't deny it. He leaned into it. You're not thinking clearly, he hissed. You're making decisions out of spite. The court will protect you from her. The attorney scrolled again, face tightening. They requested an expedited hearing, she said. Today. Today. My heartbeat turned into a drum. Grandpa turned his head slightly and looked at me. Not fear, not sadness. Apology. Because he hadn't just predicted they'd try to take his property. He'd predicted they'd try to take him. Then the attorney added the line that made my stomach drop even harder. And they listed your cabin address as your current residence. Meaning they were trying to establish that he lived there, so they could control access through a court order tied to the property. Grandpa's voice stayed steady, but it went colder. They planned this, he said. My phone buzzed again. Another alert from the cabin camera feed? The attorney glanced down at my screen and whispered, What now? I opened it. The sheriff units were still there. The locksmith was seated on the porch steps, and my father's cousin, caught near the tree line, was now being walked back toward the driveway in cuffs. But the deputy holding him wasn't looking at the cousin anymore. He was looking down at something in his hand, a folded piece of paper. The deputy unfolded it on camera, read one line, and his posture changed. Then he lifted his radio and said something I couldn't hear. The attorney leaned closer to my phone, eyes narrowing. "What is that?" she whispered. I zoomed in until the pixels broke, and I could still make out the top line of the paper the deputy was holding. Temporary guardianship order. Draft. A draft court order. Already prepared. Already printed. Already at the cabin. Like they were planning to serve it the moment the door opened. My throat went dry. Grandpa stared at the screen, then leaned toward the phone on the table, toward my father still connected on speaker, and said in a voice that was barely above a whisper, "You brought the court to my front door." And my father's answer came back, low and satisfied. "Not yet." My father's voice came through the speaker, like a knife slid gently across skin, quiet, confident, calculated. Grandpa didn't shout. He didn't rage. He simply stared at the phone as if he was finally seeing my father with no illusions left. Then he ended the call. One tap, silence. The attorney's office felt too clean for what had just been said inside it. "Okay," the attorney said, voice all business now. "We move fast." She opened a new document on her computer and started typing like she'd been waiting for this moment. "First," she said, "we file an affidavit that Mr. Carter is alive and competent. Second, we file an emergency response to the guardianship petition with evidence of fraud attempts." Grandpa nodded once. Calm, ready. "Use the call recording," he said. "And the bank alert," I added. "And the cabin footage," the attorney said sharply. "And the fact that your son attempted a death process at the bank at 6:48 a.m. She looked at Grandpa. "Mr. Carter, I need you to sign a statement right now." Grandpa took the pen without hesitation and signed with clean, steady handwriting. No trembling, no confusion, no doubt. The attorney printed it immediately and slid it into a folder marked "Filed Today." Then she turned her monitor toward us. "There's a hearing request set for 2 p.m., she said. "They're asking for expedited temporary guardianship." Grandpa's eyes narrowed slightly. "They won't get it." "They can't get it," the attorney corrected, tapping the screen. "Not with this evidence." She clicked again, pulling up a list of attachments already uploaded on my father's filing. And my stomach dropped when I saw it. A supporting statement. A PDF with my name on it. I leaned closer. "That's not mine." The attorney opened it. It was written like I was a predator. It claimed Grandpa was confused, isolated, easily influenced. It claimed I had moved into his home, restricted access to family, controlled his medication. Medication? He wasn't even on medication. My throat tightened in disbelief. Grandpa's face stayed calm, but something behind his eyes hardened. "They're building a story," he said. "Yes," the attorney replied. "A story designed to make a judge act. Fast." Then she scrolled down to the signature line, and we all saw the same thing at once. A typed name. Not my father's. Not my mother's. A third party. A witness. The attorney's voice went lower. "That witness name," she said slowly, "is your father's cousin. The one at the cabin. The one in cuffs. The one who had just been caught at the door with a locksmith." Grandpa exhaled through his nose, one controlled breath. "So they wrote the script," he said, "and they sent the actor to the stage." The attorney didn't waste a second. She made a call. "Judge's clerk," she said into her phone. "This is counsel for Mr. Harold Carter. We have an emergency response to a guardianship petition that includes evidence of an attempted fraudulent death notification, active unlawful entry attempt, and live video footage." She listened, then added, "Yes, I can email it now and file immediately." She hung up and looked at Grandpa. "Now we go to the cabin," she said, "because if they're trying to serve a draft order there, we need to cut that off physically, too." Grandpa nodded. "We're going." We drove back up the mountain with the sheriff's number saved and the attorney's evidence email already loaded. I kept sending everything: call recording, bank alert, screenshots of the fake email, the lockbox tamper log, the porch cam footage. When we turned into the cabin driveway, the scene looked like the aftermath of a storm. Two sheriff units, deputies moving calmly. The locksmith seated on the porch, pale and shaking. My father's cousin in cuffs near the tailgate, head down, and a deputy holding a clipboard with paperwork. The same deputy I'd seen on camera earlier. He saw Grandpa step out of the truck and his eyes widened. Because you don't forget the face of the man you were told was dead. "Mr. Carter," he said. Grandpa nodded once. "Alive," he replied. The deputy's posture shifted, instantly from routine to, "This is now a problem for the court." "Sir," the deputy said, "we recovered a printed draft order on site." He held it up. "Temporary guardianship order, draft." "Who printed that?" Grandpa asked. The deputy looked over at the cousin. "He had it in his bag," the deputy said, "along with a set of forms and a thumb drive." Thumb drive. My stomach tightened again. The deputy opened an evidence bag and showed the drive through the plastic. "Also," he said, "we recovered a folder labeled bank and another labeled property." Grandpa's jaw tightened slightly. The attorney wasn't there with us, but she'd told us what mattered most: intent, planning, trail. And now it was all in a deputy's hands. My father's cousin finally spoke, voice strained, trying to sound helpful. "I was just checking on the place, he said. "They asked me to—" "Who asked you?" The deputy cut in. The cousin hesitated. Grandpa stepped closer, calm but terrifying. "Say his name," Grandpa said softly. The cousin swallowed, eyes darting. Then he said it. "Your son." Grandpa didn't react. He didn't need to. The deputy wrote it down. Then the deputy looked at Grandpa again and said something that made my skin prickle. "Sir, your son called our station earlier asking if we'd confirm you were deceased." Grandpa's eyes hardened. "He called you too." The deputy nodded. "Yes. And when we told him we couldn't verify, he said he had paperwork coming." Paperwork coming. The draft guardianship order wasn't a coincidence. It was the paperwork coming. I stepped onto the porch and looked at the cabin door. The lockbox was scratched. The door frame had fresh marks where the locksmith had worked. A violation, small but loud. Grandpa stepped up beside me and looked at the wood like it was a wound. Then he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out the sealed envelope. The attorney letterhead one he'd kept unopened for hours. He held it out to me. "Open it here," he said. "Here?" I whispered. "Here," he repeated, "where they tried to steal the ending." My hands shook as I broke the seal. Inside was a single page, simple, direct, a notarized amendment. It didn't just deny my father access, it named him. It listed the fraud attempts as grounds for immediate restriction. It appointed the executor with explicit authority to freeze accounts and property access. And at the bottom was Grandpa's final line, handwritten, unmistakable. "If anyone claims I'm dead, call the sheriff. If anyone claims I'm incompetent, play the recording." I covered my mouth with my hand, not crying, just stunned by how far ahead Grandpa had seen. The deputy read it and nodded. "That," he said quietly, "is about as clear as it gets." Grandpa looked out toward the trees, then back at the driveway where his cousin stood cuffed. Then he looked at me. "They called you to tell you you get nothing," he said. I nodded, throat tight. Grandpa's voice stayed calm. "They were right about one thing," he said. "You get nothing from them." He placed a hand lightly on my shoulder. "You get your life back." When we left the cabin, the deputies were still there collecting evidence. The executor was already being notified. The bank would receive the fraud affidavit by end of day. And the attorney would walk into that 2 RPM hearing with a recording of my parents laughing about my grandfather's death while he sat alive at my kitchen table. My father thought he could erase me with one phone call. Instead, he documented himself. He tried to bring the court to Grandpa's door. Instead, he brought law enforcement to his own plan. And the best part was simple. He didn't lose because I screamed. He lost because I stayed calm long enough for the truth to become a file.